Yeah, Mr. Chapman, what I want to ask you is, what do you tell the people who can't afford to buy gold that live in the inner cities, that live in the housing projects of the inner cities?
Put away dehydrated and freeze-dried foods, and do have a filter in spite of perhaps living in an apartment. And wherever you're able, under the law, to have a weapon in your home, I certainly would have one.
And, Gene, if there's any way that you can possibly get out of New York, I really fear that there's going to be a tremendous unrest in the major cities within a relatively short period of time. Anything else?
No, that's about it. Just keep the prayers going.
God bless, and thanks so much for calling.
Anyway.
Okay, and our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464-8295. And New York has very, very strict gun control laws, and people need a weapon to protect themselves because we are moving into a period of chaos and crisis in this country, ladies and gentlemen. And our founders, under the Constitution, guaranteed that people would have the right to keep and bear weapons to protect themselves from lawlessness, from criminals, and yes, from the government themselves. And as Thomas Jefferson wrote about that, how important it was, because without an armed populace, you would soon move towards a dictatorship, which is just exactly where we're headed today. Again, our number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 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 or 464-8295, 464-8295. And Sidney, Bob, we hear all sorts of stories about the people over in Europe, and they're very unhappy with the European Union and the European currency. Hasn't this really impacted upon them and really, of course, robbed many of them of their life savings?
Well, I think it's a matter of degree. Europe's a big place, and the Germans have done the best, but they have saved their money, and they have foregone higher wages. They have excellent productivity growth. They're able to effectively sell their goods outside of the Union as well as inside. They've done what they've always done, been very successful at commerce. And the Dutch have done the same. Belgium, so-so, and France and Austria both have problems. But, then you have the pigs, and they want to get rid of them. But you can't get rid of them without getting rid of the euro. And, the whole thing is unnatural. The amalgamation under the European Union is not natural. The combination of 16 countries in the Eurozone is ridiculous. I mean, one interest rate for everybody, and the different economies are all at different stages of development or problems. I mean, the person who dreamt this whole thing up must have been on some kind of drugs or something. It's crazy.
Well, I think that, of course, they wanted to consolidate. Europe was the first stepping stone to bring about a world government and have all of these unions. I said they had North American Union, a European Union, a South American Union, an African Union. This is what they're working for. And I said, if this thing falls apart, why, of course, it will. It'll set them back in many, many years. And I'm just hoping and praying it does fall apart. But there's going to be terrible suffering over there. Certainly the idea of Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Romania, Hungary, being able to expect the German people to solve their financial problems. These people have lived under socialism. They don't want to work. Why should they? The government will take care of them. The same thing is true in Greece. They want to retire at 60 years of age. They're threatening to revolt, if they're going to raise the retirement age to 62. And yet here in America at 65, probably going up to 67 or even 70 down the line. In fact, I've always said that the real solution to our retirement program is raise the age of retirement to 85, and then the system would really be financially sound. But there's no way it's going to work the way it's going. But you go ahead, Bob.
Well, I agree with that. And my comment is you work until you can't. And people's most productive years are from 45 onward. And people don't realize that. And losing a fruitful member of society, no matter which society we're talking about, is a dreadful loss. And people should not be retiring at 65 and 70. They should not, unless they're mentally or physically ill. And, of course, we have the new nationalized medicine under the medical reform where if people get ill, well, they just liquidate them. And so they won't have any problem with that anymore. So you either keep on working or they're going to get rid of you.
Well, you know, it's really so sad. I read the obituary notice in the local newspaper, and I see all of these younger people dying of cancer, and there are effective treatments, and they've been effectively suppressed, and so many of the things producing, say, cancer of the breast, things like the birth control pill. They know it increases the incidence of cancer of the breast. They know that mammograms increase the incidence of cancer of the breast. They know that by bisphenols that they put lining the cans gives high estrogen levels will contribute to this, to the cancer of the breast, and so many other things. Smoking tobacco. In fact, the American tobacco gives you much more in the way of carcinogens, and they know that. And yet, of course, they allow these things to be put out, and of course, they say, well, after all, people should have the right to do it. Well, my goodness, you know, we certainly don't give them the right to use opium and other narcotics. I don't think the federal government should be involved in that, but I think we need state and local laws to prevent people from taking things that are going to give them cancer. They know very well that, for instance, water fluoridation increases the incidence of cancer and increases crime rates, especially when they use the hydrofluorosilicic acid that raises the level of lead in the blood, especially in blacks. They know all these things, but they just don't want the public to know that so many of the medications that are released by the FDA are going to kill people. Avendia, Vioxx, so many of them. They know what's going on, but they don't want the American people. We'll be back in just a moment to wrap up the program here with Bob Chapman. God bless.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Well, this is Dr. Stan, and Bob was just saying really what an unfortunate situation that Joan, who called in, is in, because for the elderly, it's very difficult. I mean, it's very difficult to get dividends. If you chase dividends, you may get the problems. Certainly if you buy oil and gas trusts, why, they're fine. If the price of oil goes up, you do very well. If the price of oil goes down, why, of course, you lose the value of your investment. It's very difficult for people in this day and age to survive economically because the whole house of cards is beginning to crumble. And John Maynard Keynes, of course, the father of Keynesian economics, suggested you could just spend yourself into prosperity. And somebody said, well, but in the end, it's all going to collapse. And his response was, well, in the end, we're all going to die. Well, John Maynard Keynes has died. But the legacy that he's left of chaos is just beginning to descend upon us. Understand what's going on. Make your preparations. And you're probably going to lose a great deal of what you have. But you at least diversify and try to maintain some of what you've worked your whole life for. And some of the elderly people are going to be impoverished. They're going to cut back on Social Security. And Medicare, they won't cut it back. They'll just devalue the value of the dollar. And you'll get your dollars. They just won't purchase as much. We're seeing the end of the American financial system.